how to blow up a pipeline and how nonviolence protects the state is the kind of thing that I'd like to read and maybe make a video about, to give make a case for violence, but also give the arguments against it. I think it's an important conversation to have. For example, do you remember when Van Gogh got splashed with soup? I made a video about that, and a lot of people were really angry. Were really angry at me. The problem is they failed in making their point. It wasn't clear what they were protesting by targeting a priceless work of art. Their action actually brought about negative reactions to have positive change. That kind of argument is always the same. As soon as you do a little bit of violence, well, people are going to side against you because you used violence. Oh, you blocked traffic? Well, how does that make sense about what you're protesting? If you're blocking traffic for climate change, you're actually making cars, be on the road for longer, so people don't actually know. To me, I find this kind of analysis kind of ahistorical. A lot of political change, and I guess I'll have to look into that for that video, has been brought about by long struggles, violent struggles, that I imagine a lot of people were like, hey guys, don't be violent. If you're violent, people will side against you. Be peaceful. Fuck. The whole fucking statue thing. So in Montreal, we some punk anarchists took down a statue of John A. MacDonald, who was, as you may imagine, quite racist against natives, against indigenous people. And so many people were against this, saying that, oh, we understand that you may criticize John A. MacDonald for being, for basically wanting to genocide indigenous people, but you don't have to be violent about it. So there was a statue right in the center, in the downtown Montreal, that was taken down, and people got really pissed that a statue of John A. MacDonald was taken down. And I remember having these conversations. The whole statue conversation is kind of, at least to me, it's kind of a settled issue. Like when people try to take down statues, it's not about erasing history, as a lot of people accuse it to be, right? The one thing that leftists don't want to do when it comes to talking about the history of oppressed people is to not erase history. Quite the contrary, actually. A lot of conservatives, a lot of right-wing people will say that, oh, all right, can you just leave us alone about slavery? Can you just leave us alone about the past? Can we live in the moment? Can we look up to the future? Instead of just looking at how, oh, we've oppressed black people for hundreds of years. Oh, we oppressed indigenous people for hundreds of years. The left doesn't want to let that go. The left keeps bringing that up. So how could you say that the left always clings to the past when it comes to oppression, but is trying to erase the past in terms of the oppressors? They're not trying to. There's a difference between history and public history. It's a difference that I've encountered in a video that I really enjoyed by Then and Now, that you may know. Then and Now on statues. Statues, philosophy, and civil disobedience. It was 3 years ago. It only has 10K views. Check it out after this stream, not right now. Or after the segment, if this becomes a segment, but not right now. I don't remember if the video was about that or if I extrapolated this reasoning from that video. It's been a long time. But there's a difference between public history and history. Public history is what we put on pedestals, right? And history is what happened. And both are very different. And you don't want to confuse the two. The kind of history that you don't want to put on pedestal is the kind of history that should not be glorified. The kind of history that you want to put on pedestal is what you want to glorify. So you put on pedestals people who were courageous, people who were who fought for the well-being of the collective, right? You put on pedestals values that you want to promote, You erect monuments as models, as role models to look up to, right? And that's what we do. That's what public history is. So people who wanted to genocide other people, who wanted to enslave other people, and who fought to genocide, enslave other people, those are the kind of people that you want to keep knowing about. You want them in history because their contribution to history still has impacts today. You just don't want to put them on pedestals. That's all. In Germany, they don't put Nazis on pedestals for very good reasons, but they acknowledge very clearly their history. Now, when it comes to violence against these statues, when we put down the John A. MacDonald statue, let me show you a video of it. Oh, there's ads. There you go. When that was done, when that was made, there was a lot of discourse about if this violence was warranted. Aside from the fact that we're trying to erase history, right? And we're trying to, and we're running the risk of repeating history by erasing it, by not wanting to acknowledge it, because that's what leftists want to do, right? They don't want to acknowledge the history of genocide of the indigenous peoples in Canada. But aside from that discourse, there was also the discourse of violence. Was that necessary? And I remember talking to people around me, people who objected against taking down that statue. Why? Did they really care about that statue? No. They're just idiots. But I remember them saying, well, you know, if you really didn't like that statue, you could have just written a petition, or you could have, I don't know, you could have protested against it. And the funny thing is, there's been petitions for years to take down that statue. There's been protests for years about taking down that statue. You just haven't heard of it, right? Because who cares about petitions? Who cares about protests if nothing happens at these protests? You just didn't hear of it. There's been attempts for letters, protests, petitions to take these role models off their pedestals, because we don't believe them to be the right role models that we should elevate as representatives of the values we want to uphold. And there comes the necessity sometimes. Can I say that on Twitch? Some people will say that it's necessary for violence to come when all other options have been completely dismissed and ignored. And then they do that. And then people are angry that they haven't tried the nonviolent way. They tried the nonviolent way. They tried and it failed. Why did it fail? Because it doesn't grab attention. It doesn't give attention to the issue. If it could work, then good. Tant mieux. But in that case, it didn't work. And they resorted to violence. That's a bit the gist of what happened with that statue. And it's a bit my case for violence. Sometimes, not all the time. Not my case for violence. The case that some people bring for violence. And that's why I want to personally make a video on violence. I think it will be interesting to iron out the nuances, if that's how you say it,